My name is Lee and I am an engineer. I am not a scientist, but I am about to propose a unified theory of energy which encompasses everything from cosmology to geology to biology to any ology you want to mention. This goes out directly to Wal Thornhill, David Talbot and James MacDonald, as I believe these men would do well in hearing about this. I'm going to use arcane language, new language, and mix in a few new ones, because I don't know about all sciences, but the terminology I'm hoping you can grasp is the idea that is put forward here that I would like you to try and grasp. I will talk slow and deliberately during the video, basically to get the explanation across. This is a hydrogen atom. It has a nucleus and an electron and two electron orbits. We are told that the electron jumps between these two fixed orbits as it goes around the nucleus. They do not know how it disappears or why, only that it jumps from one orbit to the next. The energy in between these two orbits is equal to the orbit above. So E1 plus the distance between E1 and E2 equals E2. But it jumps between these, we don't know how, don't know why. Okay, my theory of everything is that this is a bit of a cartoon understanding of how an electron and an atom actually function. What you are seeing is a side view. This is a torus. So it doesn't actually have two orbits. It just has two loops of energy that spin. They spin in the x direction and they spin in the y direction. So if we looked from the side, it would kind of look like an apple. This is how energy actually moves. If you can imagine an electron, one electron, inside both of these loops, spinning around, causing what looks like an electron ball shape. An electron shell, indeed. Now this image is fractal, which means it continues down into infinity. Whichever loop you look in, the electron loop, the electron orbit loop, they will always keep receding into infinity. Now, it's called a torus, and we use this same electrical configuration on Earth, as we can see here. So what I am telling you is not new, but how the universe is constructed using this is new. As you can see, there is a hole in the middle of a torus, and there always is a hole in the middle of a torus. We'll come to what that means in a while. But first, how and why an electron jumps from one orbit to the next, and why it releases light on the way down and not on the way up. Here are two examples of how an electron jumps. Top left and top right are the classic example of quantum leaping. You have two orbits, both of them are fixed. Orbit 1 and orbit 2. The electron jumps from orbit 2 to orbit 1. There is a flash of light, and then the electron is in orbit 1. Why? Don't know. How? Don't know. Change of state? Why? Don't know. So no explanation at all, and yet a whole realm of science has been built on not knowing this fundamental fact. The second example below it is an electric universe adaptation. Basically, I've applied a voltage to orbit 1 and orbit 2 and called them voltage 1 and voltage 2. Now, as orbit 1 voltage 1 expands, it goes through all of the ranges of the electromagnetic fields. Then it reaches voltage orbit 2. As it drops from voltage orbit 2 to voltage orbit 1, it goes through all these field lines. Now what happens next is that it meets field lines that are mathematically perfect light speed orbits. And because it has passed on energy and is now receding to orbit voltage 1, to pick up more energy, to receive more, it must dump the energy it has. Violet, dark blue, light blue, and red. These are mathematically perfect light speed orbits where this range of colour energy is dumped. That is how. It flashes on the way down and does not flash on the way up because it is absorbing energy. It only flashes on the way down because it is taking a perpendicular twist in a toroidal loop chain, and the energy comes out perpendicular to the original direction, which is from orbit 2 to orbit 1. This is released as light. It is always released as light because it has to make a perpendicular transition. There are no particles, it's just a loop spinning and turning in a different direction, perpendicular to the current flow, which is from orbit 2 to orbit 1. You may at any time pause the recording and review what is on screen. So I say that energy takes a perpendicular twist of the energy loop chain that is constructed from all these loops into infinity or fractals. I say that when the voltage is raised from orbit 1 to orbit 2, the loops form or are already there, and they become filled with energy. They take straight line directions to the outer voltage orbit 2 shell. And on the way back in, they do exactly the same thing. They change rotational direction, turn perpendicular in loop chains, and go straight towards voltage orbit 1. If this is true, as I believe it is, I should be able to show an example of it. Well, here's where matter is constructed at the same time. Because energy attracts matter, matter covers energy, and energy moves matter in that order. So, I say matter is attracted to energy, and I say that energy moves perpendicular, so that straight lines of energy are formed, which would form straight lines of matter. Here is my first example of a torus forming matter in the body by running perpendicular to the outer shell rotation and dragging matter with it to eventually form this. This is an example of a torus. As we see, we have the outer pupil is orbit 1 and the outer iris is orbit 2. So the energy, by let's call it alternating current, flashes outwards and inwards and outwards and inwards. So matter, because it's encased in matter, because we are matter, the gel, whatever you want to call it, the jelly that we first started off in, starts to get turned into matter. How would it do that? On the way down, the perpendicular chain wave, it's still a wave, there are no particles, comes down to the revolving orbit 1. Now, as it reaches it, arcing will take place due to the microscopic atomic level nature of what's actually happening. Because we're carbon based, what I would expect to see would be tiny buildups of little carbon balls which would stick together to form conduits and matter, whatever you want to call it. So I believe there would be leaders formed from voltage 1 and voltage 2. As the wave comes down, they build up. As the wave goes up, they build down. Just like a lightning strike, but very small. Now, if I could sort of show that this happens in nature, it would kind of say that, sure, okay, this might be happening. So, where would I be able to see lightning coming down and lightning going up? Well, let's start with the torus that surrounds the Earth. We'll take the cloud level as voltage 2 and the Earth as voltage 1. Now you would expect, as I've said, that there must be lightning coming down and lightning going up. Well, we've seen this happening, and here it is. Lightning going down, and this is lightning going upwards. Now, I believe that this passage of electricity is happening all the time. It's just a lightning strike, goes past a white light kill switch and shows it to be visible. So I'd like to show that whatever these lightning bolts are that are coming down, they are building matter in the voltage areas that they are, with the wave going up and the wave coming down. So I believe that this is an electoral representation of the energy that is coming out of the ground, and this just happened to be a seed in the way of the electricity coming out of the ground, making the energy appear as matter. Now, trees are made from air, carbon dioxide to be exact. They absorb the carbon, or in fact the carbon is attracted to energy, the carbon covers the energy, and then the energy moves the matter, as in trees and tree leaves and everything else. Now, to prove this, I'd have to show electricity coming out of the sky and leaving the ground and making the shape of a tree. I wonder if I could do that. And so we see the energy going back through where it's coming out of the ground, exactly as I predicted. Also, it would normally be the tallest tree in the forest, not because of electrical connection, because that's where the energy started. The energy radiates out in rings, and so the forest radiates out in rings, just like a torus. The torus is everywhere, it is in everything, and basically it's waiting to be filled by energy going through a seed, making it expand. Because a tree comes from a seed comes from a tree, all the way back into infinity. They keep getting smaller, like a little pattern, a little web pattern that you could pull out. So anyway, that's showing that, as I say, where the wave hits the ground, electric leaders are formed. All trees are formed this way. Electric leaders coming out of the ground, the carbon in the air, covering the energy, till eventually they are trees. Energy moves matter because that's what happens with us as well, but we are moving the matter that surrounds us. More examples. This is how a rainbow is formed. I've already said that there is a white light kill switch. This is basically situated at the full spectrum level. Once all the colours of the spectrum have been expanded through with input energy, there is a white light arc release, which then drops the voltage level down to orbit 1. We've already shown that this is responsible for trees growing, these leaders, but also to show how a rainbow is formed. That again is the voltage 2 and voltage 1 clouds and ground. And there's a white light release. We'll see it as a cloud burst with a crack of thunder and a blast of lightning. And then as the rain falls, because there's a downward flow of electrons, that's why the rain comes down, the full spectrum of energy is drained from the voltage 2 level down to voltage 1, and because it is refracted through the raindrops, it shows the full colour spectrum as the energy shells come in through all the magnetic field line areas, and these are released as the rainbow. Energy levels are always draining. This is why you can pretty much always see rainbows near waterfalls and any kind of falling water, because energy is draining all the time. And here the energy has attracted the matter, which is the water, and basically gone into a torus rainbow shape. Now, it doesn't matter which side of this torus you are, you always see the same face of the energy, because the energy is in circular ball shapes going in. That's why a rainbow always looks the same from any angle, because it's in a torus shape and the energy is always draining, and the water molecules are attracted to the energy that is there, and so they reflect the light that's being given off at that point in the radius circle. Now, I'm also going to propose here that there is no gravity, there is only the downward flow of energy, which I've just explained is why rainbows can be seen at any point where there's water spraying, because energy is constantly going downwards. That's why you can always see a rainbow, because as we've seen, voltage 1 to voltage 2 gives off light. It gives off the rainbow. So, and it only does it on the way down because it's disposing of energy. And so I say there is no gravity, only the downward flow of electrons, which is why it's a constant speed if you remove air. That's why there is no gravity in space, because the electron flow is confined to this planet's torus shape, and it's always downwards. The only proof of this that I can offer would be a gyroscope. Now, there's many videos out there with a professor holding a gyroscope, a 50-pound gyroscope, spinning it up to speed, and then lifting it as if it weighed nothing. They do not know how this works. This is how it works. Gravity is the downward flow of electrons, always. When a gyroscope is spun up to speed, it counteracts the effects of the electron flow by rotating its electrons in the opposite direction. Now, it floats in the air like it floats in space. As we've already put forward, there is no gravity in space because there is no electron flow. So, by counteracting the electron flow with spin, the object becomes stationary in mid-air. It can be pushed around as if it were weightless. This is because it is weightless. The electron flow is gravity. Spin a gyroscope, it counteracts gravity. Due to the very fact of electron flow is now reversed, it is an object in space, and when it loses momentum, the electron flow forces it to the ground at a uniform rate based on the spin. And this one's always just absolutely perfect. Energy coming in through the bottom, forming the stalk at the top. Two rotating loops with the proton in the middle, forming three rings made out of three circles. So you have your C's, you have your outer line there, and you have the outer boundary line. That is an energy apple torus formation. This next one is to show how the Earth was formed. We've taken a plasma ball, and I'm using it as an example that the internal energy tubes, which would be a line of toruses all linked together, would flow out like the rays of an electromagnetic field, and matter would be attracted to energy, matter would cover energy, and that would be how ground would be formed. So they're using a spinning plasma ball here. Plasma is energy, energy attracts matter. So if they simulate spinning it, might be the Earth, we'll see the torus tubes coming out, being spun and coalescing into a shape. I think this shape is going to have a spike through the middle, a flat middle, with a torus trying its desperate hardness to form underneath. So as we can see, we have the spinning piece through the middle, we have the torus disc starting to form in the center, with the bottom piece trying to go up through the middle where that beam is coming out, where this guy has got the metal rod. There we go, move this over. So there's a beam coming out, but it's getting sucked up through the bottom and then splayed out to the sides and back into the middle. This is the figure of 8 movement. Small loop on the bottom, large loop on the top. As you can see, they're speeding this up quite nicely. If only we had a better angle, that would be brilliant. And oh look, there's a pulse, just like an alternating current pulse. And so as we can see, these pillars that are standing out, as they rotate faster and faster, if there was matter in there, it would be attracted to the energy there and formed in the center, like a spiral galaxy. So these would be the pillars of the Earth, I suppose, holding up matter. And so as this video plays, we can watch the torus form right there. Then it's going to take a perpendicular twist, turn sideways and become flat. There we go. Figure 8, small at the bottom, large at the top, forming a disk of matter, which is actually the gases that are in there which are being illuminated. There we go. Flat disk. All to do with input and rotation speeds. Matter is attracted to energy, and so energy would form across there, and matter would form across there and make a flat disk. This is to show what I believe is how the land masses were formed when the planet was first being made. I also believe that if you raised the voltage of this universe at the beginning of time, you could speed up the the process of matter formation due to the amount of electrical arcing and activity going on. So what does it mean, knowing that energy moves in a hydrogen cycle shape? Well, this shape can be applied to everything, from your eye to your blood cells, to how your veins look like lightning due to the passage of energy, all your fingers, all your round joints, every round thing in your body was formed by a toroidal shape, alternating current, voltage 1 to voltage 2. Where your bones are, they are hollow, they have little circles in them, with matter on the outside, bone matter. And inside these circles, blood cells are made. Holes within holes within holes, matter on the inside, matter on the outside. Now I could go through example after example, these kind of things, but it sets me to thinking of, in the past, there were extremely large trees, and there were extremely large dinosaurs. Okay, so if we raise the voltage of the Earth and expand the torus inside that, that would give us a higher atmosphere, and I believe trees grow to the height of the torus ball energy level on the planet that we can reach. Trees only get so high now, but in the past we had 1,500 feet trees and animals that were as big as 4 double-decker buses. So it might be safe to assume that the voltage was higher in the past. So what could cause all these things to die? And if the voltage was higher, the AC current may have been faster. So anyway, back to the dinosaurs and the trees. If there was a massive voltage drop throughout the universe, so that the Earth's core, its electromagnetic core, shrank, this would bring down the atmosphere and probably suck down quite a bit of the planet's core as well, making the Earth not round. And the Earth is not round compared to all the other planets. We are a misshapen ball. So this kind of is a small proof that if the electromagnetic energy shrank, the Earth's core would shrink, the Earth would collapse in, and the atmosphere would come down. This would affect every other magnetic field line on the planet, and they would shrink too. And without this energy, because energy attracts matter, matter covers energy, and then energy moves matter, it wouldn't be moving as high. So all these trees and all these animals would not have enough energy to survive, because all the trees would die because there would be no energy flowing through them. So far we have learned that 95% of all life on this planet has died so far, considering what we started with. If there was a voltage drop, a lot of that would have been gone in the first. If there was a second, there would be massive devastation across this planet, and there is. Pretty much every building on this planet except for the pyramids is on the ground, and we don't know how they got there. A core collapse would do that. And so we could go fractally in to infinity and be here all day. But what it comes down to is, if there is a voltage drop in the universe, and right now the sun's pulse is over 3 minutes, and things aren't growing as well here, all the weather's getting all crazy, this is all due to energy movement and lack of energy. So what will happen when the energy finally runs out? I do have the answer, but it's a little grim. It'd be nice to hear what everybody else thinks about this, and whether or not you think I might be correct. So what could be said about conclusions? You could say that energy stays as current until it meets matter, and then matter covers energy when it flows through the web of the seed and expands it. I believe that energy moves in toroidal fashion, and that all energy toruses are connected in toroidal loop chains, connecting every single thing in the universe, like a handful of soap bubbles. I believe energy can be passed in any direction, and I believe that there are no particles, there are no electrons, there are only loops of energy that continue down and outwards into infinity. In space, to Wall Thornhill, these will be called Birkeland current filaments. Down at the microscopic, they are torus toroidal chain loops. I believe that if we raise the voltage of the universe, we'd be able to sustain dinosaurs and huge trees. I believe if we raised the voltage of the universe, all mythology would be true, as it has been fading since the beginning. And I believe if you raise the voltage of the Bible, all things in that, all miracles by electromagnetic infusion of energy, could easily be possible. Thank you. So I guess that's it. I am expecting a wide range of differing replies, and I would like to thank you all for listening.